In the 1990s, thrillers did not just chase killers or unravel conspiracies. They provoked protests, triggered ratings battles, and forced studios to defend their own releases. Some faced censorship. Others survived public fury. Each walked a narrow path between distribution and disappearance. These are the films that nearly vanished before audiences ever took their seats. Basic in 1992. Before the first ticket was sold, protesters were already outside theaters. When this erotic thriller prepared to open in 1992, advocacy groups gathered in Los Angeles and San Francisco, accusing the film of portraying bisexual women as violent predators. Police stood between chanting crowds and premiere guests. Some exhibitors feared unrest and considered dropping the booking altogether. Inside the studio, there was a different battle. The Motion Picture Association demanded cuts to avoid the commercially fatal NC-17 rating. Director Paul Verhoeven trimmed seconds from sexual sequences, yet preserved the interrogation scene that would become infamous. That moment turned Sharon Stone into a global star, yet it also defined the outrage. Critics called it exploitative. Religious organizations condemned it. The tension only fueled curiosity. Viewers lined up to see what had caused such fury. The film opened to massive box office numbers, proving that controversy can be the most powerful marketing of all. But the path to that success was precarious. Had exhibitors folded under pressure, the movie might have disappeared after a short, troubled run. Instead, it survived protests, ratings threats, and public condemnation to become one of the defining thrillers of the decade. And yet what followed would make even that storm look controlled. Natural-Born Killers, 1994. If the previous film provoked anger, this one ignited panic. Now, Oliver Stone's hyper-stylized crime thriller depicted two lovers who become celebrity serial killers while the media turns their violence spectacle. The imagery was frantic, the editing disorienting, the bloodshed relentless. The ratings board demanded significant trims before granting an R classification. Stone reluctantly removed several seconds of violence to avoid an NC-17 rating that would have crippled distribution. Even with the cuts, major theater chains hesitated. Executives worried about liability. Some law enforcement groups publicly criticized the release. After opening, the controversy intensified. Defense attorneys in later criminal cases attempted to argue that the film inspired copycat crimes. Families of victims filed lawsuits against the studio, though courts ultimately dismissed those claims, citing free speech protections. The debate shifted from artistic taste to moral responsibility. Can a film be blamed for real-world brutality? Night in the Storm nearly swallowed its theatrical life. Advertisers distanced themselves. Politicians condemned it, yet audiences kept showing up, driven by curiosity and defiance. The movie became a lightning rod for arguments about media violence and celebrity culture. Crash, 1996. This was not a thriller built on explosions or police chases. It was built on fixation. Adapted from the novel by J.G. Ballard, director David Cronenberg presented a story about people who developed disturbing attachments to automobile collisions. The idea alone unsettled studio executives long before the first screening. When the film premiered at Cannes, it won a special jury prize, yet applause did not quiet the outcry. In the United States, distributor Fine Line Features faced internal resistance. Ted Turner, who then oversaw the parent company, reportedly voiced strong objections to the project. Conversations circulated about shelving it entirely. The Motion Picture Association initially issued an NC-17 rating. After minor trims, it received an R, yet many theaters still declined to exhibit it. In the United Kingdom, several local councils restricted screenings. Major newspapers condemned it as morally corrosive. While talk shows debated whether it had crossed a line that cinema should never approach. There were no traditional villains, only human obsession presented without judgment. That clinical tone disturbed critics more than graphic imagery ever could. Its theatrical life hung in the balance as exhibitors weighed reputation against revenue. It endured because curiosity outpaced caution. Audiences who sought challenging cinema found it. But the next entry would test the system in a different way. Not through quiet discomfort, but through an industrial gamble that few believed could succeed. Showgirls, 1995. When a major Hollywood studio chose to release a wide distribution film carrying an NC-17 rating, the industry watched in disbelief. Directed by Paul Verhoeven, this drama followed an ambitious dancer navigating the ruthless entertainment scene of Las Vegas. Unlike most productions that fought aggressively to secure an R, this one accepted the restrictive classification. That decision immediately limited its reach. Several national theater chains refused to screen NC-17 titles. Television networks declined advertising slots. Even some newspapers rejected promotional materials. The controversy centered not only on its provocative imagery, but on the precedent it set. If a large studio could release such a film, what boundaries remained? Critics responded harshly. Reviews described it as excessive and misguided. Financially, it struggled during its initial run and quickly lost premium screens. Yet the debate extended beyond box office totals. It became a case study in how ratings shape distribution. Its theatrical presence survived only weeks before receding. At the time, it was labeled a cautionary tale. Push the limits, and the marketplace may shut its doors. 1995. This thriller did not spark protests in the streets. It caused anxiety in boardrooms. When director David Fincher presented his vision of a serial killer who stages murders around the 7 deadly sins, studio executives admired the craftsmanship, yet feared the ending. The script concluded with a final act so bleak that it left no comfort for the audience. Test screenings revealed stunned silence. Executives pushed for a rewrite that would soften the blow. They wanted hope. Like they wanted justice that felt reassuring, Fincher refused. Lead actor Brad Pitt supported keeping the original conclusion and negotiated that the ending remain intact. The dispute was not about graphic imagery alone. It was about tone. Could mainstream audiences accept a thriller that denied catharsis? The risk was enormous. A softened ending might have guaranteed broader appeal. Keeping it intact meant gambling the film's theatrical reach. When it finally opened, viewers were shaken yet captivated. The oppressive mood became its identity. Instead of collapsing under its own darkness, thrived because of it. Word of mouth spread quickly. What executives once feared became the very reason people bought tickets. But if despair unsettled studio leaders, the next film provoked something far more combustible, not just artistic debate, but fury that reached beyond the screen and into faith and politics. Eyes Wide Shut, 1999. When Stanley Kubrick completed his final film, anticipation was enormous. The project had been shrouded in secrecy for years. Its exploration of jealousy, power, and hidden rituals sparked speculation long before audiences saw a frame. After Kubrick's death, Warner Bros. Prepared the film for release. The Motion Picture Association signaled that certain scenes would result in an NC-17 rating. To secure an R, digital figures were inserted into one sequence to obscure explicit imagery. That decision ignited debate. Critics questioned whether altering the director's vision so soon after his passing crossed an ethical line. The marketing campaign leaned into mystery, which only intensified public fascination. Religious groups voiced objections. Commentators accused the film of glorifying immoral behavior. Some theaters monitored early audience reactions, carefully fearing backlash. Yet the film reached screens nationwide and performed solidly at the box office. Its controversy did not prevent exhibition, but it shaped perception. Conversations about censorship, artistic intent, and posthumous edits dominated headlines. What nearly limited its theatrical reach was not open protest but uncertainty. Could audiences accept such an enigmatic and provocative farewell from a master filmmaker? Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, 1990 wide release. Although produced in the mid-80s, this film did not reach wider audiences until 1990 after a prolonged ratings battle. Shot on a modest budget and inspired loosely by real killer Henry Lee Lucas, the movie presented violence with a cold documentary tone that deeply disturbed censors. The Motion Picture Association initially refused to grant it an R rating. For years, it existed in distribution limbo, carrying an X classification that most theaters would not touch. Unlike stylized studio thrillers, this film avoided glamour. Murders unfolded abruptly and without cinematic comfort. That realism sparked fierce debate about exploitation versus honesty. When it finally secured an R rating and limited theatrical play, critics were divided. Some praised its stark approach, while others condemned it as nihilistic. Major chains hesitated. Advertising was minimal. Its survival depended on independent theaters willing to take reputational risk. What nearly kept it from screens was not spectacle but restraint. The refusal to sensationalize made it harder for audiences to process. Yet that same restraint later earned it recognition as one of the most uncompromising crime films of its era. The People vs. Larry Flynt, 1996. This courtroom drama centered on publisher Larry Flynt and his battles over free speech. Directed by Milos Forman and starring Woody Harrelson, the film examined obscenity law and the limits of expression in America. The subject alone ensured controversy. Religious organizations protested early screenings, arguing that the film glorified pornography. Some theater owners received complaints before opening weekend. A few exhibitors in conservative regions quietly declined bookings to avoid backlash. The Motion Picture Association Granted an R rating, yet debates continued on talk shows and in editorials. Was the film defending constitutional rights or celebrating provocation? That question shadowed its release. Despite resistance, it secured nationwide distribution and earned Academy Award nominations. The controversy did not erase it, but it narrowed its margin for error. Box office performance depended on audiences willing to separate the defense of free speech from the personality center. Its theatrical journey demonstrated how politically charged subject matter can complicate exhibition even when the film itself argues for constitutional principles. Dogma, 1999. This one didn't begin with quiet concern. It began with organized resistance. Before its wide release, protests were already forming outside theaters across the United States. Directed by Kevin Smith, Dogma presented a satirical story involving fallen angels, religious doctrine, and divine loopholes that could undo existence itself. But what the film treated with irony, others treated with alarm. Religious organizations called for boycotts. Some demanded the film be banned outright. The controversy centered on portrayal, not violence, not explicit imagery, interpretation. The Catholic League publicly condemned the film, accusing it of disrespecting core beliefs. Demonstrations appeared in multiple cities. In some cases, protesters stood directly outside cinemas, urging audiences not to enter. But theater owners began to hesitate, not because of ratings, but because of potential backlash. Inside the distribution chain, tension grew. Disney, which owned Miramax at the time, refused to release the film under its banner. The project had to be sold to another distributor just to reach theaters. That alone signaled risk, not financial, reputational, and yet curiosity spread faster than criticism. Audiences wanted to see what had triggered such strong reactions. Lines formed, debates intensified. Some viewers walked in expecting offense and walked out discussing philosophy instead. The film survived, not by avoiding controversy, but by existing inside it. Because what nearly stopped its release wasn't content alone. Kids, 1995. Before it reached mainstream theaters, this film was already labeled dangerous. Directed by Larry Clark and written by Harmony Korine, this raw urban thriller drama followed a group of teenagers drifting through New York City over the course of a single day. Its unfiltered depiction of youth culture shocked early viewers at the Sundance Film Festival. The Motion Picture Association initially gave it an NC-17 rating. Distributor Miramax feared the classification would cripple its release. In an unusual move, the company created a separate entity called Shining Excalibur Films to distribute it independently while retaining creative involvement. That maneuver allowed the film to open without the Miramax label directly attached. Several major theater chains declined to screen it. Media outlets debated whether the film exploited its young cast or simply documented uncomfortable reality. Politicians referenced it in discussions about decency standards. Advocacy groups expressed concern about its portrayal of teenage behavior and public health issues. What nearly prevented its theatrical survival was not spectacle, but authenticity. The dialogue felt unscripted. The performances felt dangerously real. Viewers were unsure whether they were witnessing fiction or documentary. Despite restricted bookings, it developed strong word of mouth within urban markets and art house circuits. Its controversy became part of its identity. The film did not disappear. Instead, it forced a conversation about adolescents' media responsibility and the limits of realism in American cinema.